The Assembly is now in session. Assemblymember Swanson notices the absence of a quorum. The sergeants at arms will prepare the chamber and bring in absent members. Clerk will call the roll.
Ashajian, Alejo, Allen, Amiano, Atkins, Bell, Berryhill, Block, Blumenfield, Bonilla, Bradford, Brownlee, Buchanan, Butler, Calderon, Campos, Carter, Cedillo, Chesbro, Conway, Cook, Davis, Dickinson, Donnelly, Eng, Fewer, Fletcher, Fong, Fuentes, Furatani, Galgiani, Garrick, Gatto, Gordon, Garrell, Grove, Hagman, Halderman, Hall, Harkey, Hayashi, Hernandez, Hill, Huber, Hueso, Huffman, Jeffries, Jones, Knight, Lara, Logue, Lowenthal, Ma, Mansour, Mendoza, Miller, Mitchell, Monning, Morrell, Nastandi, Nielsen, Norby, Olson, Pan, Perea, V. Manuel Perez, Portantino, Silva, Skinner, Smythe, Solorio, Swanson, Torres, Valadeo, Wagner, Wykowski, Williams, Yamada. Mr. Speaker.
Members, a quorum is present. We ask everyone present to please stand for the prayer. We ask Assembly Chaplain Father Constantine Papadimos to lead us in today's prayer.
Good morning. Let us pray. Lord, when you said, "Let there be light," it came at 186,000 miles per second. When you command something to happen, it happens. If we get into agreement with you, Lord, and stay with you, then we will see your commanded blessing take us further than we ever thought possible. Help us to set our heart and mind on your goodness and to declare that your will be done in our life. Amen.
We now ask everyone present to stay standing for the flag salute. Please join Assemblymember Olson as she leads us in the pledge. Ms. Olson.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Reading of the previous day's journal.
Assembly Chamber, Sacramento, Wednesday, January 12, 2011. The Assembly met at 7 a.m. Honorable William Carter, Assembly Member.
Mr. Allen moves and Mr. Hagman seconds that the reading of the previous day's journal be dispensed with. Presentations of petitions, there are none. Introduction references of bills will be deferred. Reports of committees will be deemed read and amendments deemed adopted. Messages from the governor, there are none. Messages from the Senate, there are none. Motions and resolutions. The absences for the day will be deemed read and printed in the journal. Okay. Mr. Allen, you are recognized.
Yes. I request unanimous consent to allow Assembly Member Olson to have a guest at her desk and a photographer on the floor.
Without objection.
And, Mr. Speaker, I request unanimous consent to allow Assembly Members Allen, Dickinson, Ang, Garrick, and Monning to speak on Adjourn in Memory today. And,
Without objection.
No objection. I'll start with mine, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker and members, I request that we adjourn in memory of Ed West, the former Vice Mayor of the City.
Mr. Allen, if you could,
Excuse me?
if you could just wait for a couple minutes, thank you. Assemblymember Olson, you may introduce your guest.
Thank you, members. Today I have with me my youngest, my son, Grady Lincoln Olson. Thank you.
Welcome to the chambers, young man. We're going to move to business on the daily file, Assembly third reading. File item 1 with amendments. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1 with amendments by Assemblymember John A. Perez.
There are amendments at the desk relative to file item 1 by Speaker Perez. Those amendments are eligible today. Speaker Perez, do you wish to take those amendments up?
I do.
The clerk will read the amendments, read the bill with amendments. And Mr. Speaker, you may open on the amendments.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, today I present amendments to Assembly Bill 1, the vehicle to restore Governor Schwarzenegger's elimination of Stage 3 child care programs. As you recall, the former governor unilaterally eliminated funding for this program, which provides child care services to 60,000 working families with a line-item veto, despite our agreement to the contrary. The former governor's actions would have effectively created the nation's first work-to-welfare program in America. because the folks who utilize this program are people who've worked hard to get off welfare and provide for their families. But we in the Assembly didn't let the Schwarzenegger plan happen. We stepped forward and cut our own operating budget by $6 million and sent the savings to child care. First 5 commissions up and down the state stepped forward with critical transition funding as well. And we searched high and low for eligible federal funds to divert to the program. And since the day after Governor Brown was elected, I've been working with him to restore the program. Today, I'm pleased to announce that our efforts were successful. Stage 3 child care will be preserved. The budget released this week continues Stage 3 child care effective April 1st, and we're working with the Department of Finance and the Department of Education to ensure interim funding is available to maintain the program until the new budget package takes effect April 1st. There are very difficult cuts proposed to all of the child care programs, and undoubtedly the final budget will have to include some of those proposed reductions. But as painful as those cuts may be, they'll be far better than Governor Schwarzenegger's attempt to throw 60,000 families out while taking away the safe education and child care for the children of these parents. Until the new budget takes effect, to restore the program on April 1st, we'll be working to secure funding and allocating allocations available from the prior year unspent funds through administrative action. However, should it be determined that the interim funds require legislative action, AB 1 will be used for that purpose. Therefore, the amendments before the House today narrow the scope of the bill and remove any new general fund spending and instead allocate $60 million on unspent prior year funds to maintain Stage 3 program until April 1st. I ask that the amendments be adopted and that the bill goes out to print and back on file to be available when and if needed.
Are there any members who wish to speak on the amendments? Is there any further question and debate on the amendments? Seeing and hearing none, we will move to a vote. Without objection, we will take a voice vote on the amendments. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. Bill is out to print and back on file. Members, this concludes the business on the daily file. We will now move to announcements and adjourn in memories. Mr. Hagman, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just have a parliamentary inquiry, if I may.
State your parliamentary inquiry, Mr. Hagman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to confirm this is your first day as Speaker Pro Tem playing today. I want to congratulate you for that.
Thank you. It's technically my second day, though. Okay, session schedule is as follows. Monday, January 17th is a holiday, Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Tuesday, January 18th, we have floor session at 12 noon. Wednesday, January 19th is a check-in session. Thursday, January 20th, we have floor session at 9 a.m. All other items remaining will be passed and retained. All motions shall be continued. We're now going to move to requests to adjourn in memory. The following members were previously granted permission to speak on adjourn in memories today. Mr. Allen, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I request that we adjourn today in memory of Ed West, the former vice mayor of the city of American Canyon, who died unexpectedly of a heart attack on January 10th. He was well-liked and respected in the community and by the other elected leaders. He leaves behind his wife, Mimi, and his son, Kyle, and a daughter, Megan. His eldest son, Philip, was a U.S. Marine who was killed in Iraq in November of 2004. So I respectfully request that we do adjourn in his memory. Thank you.
Mr. Dickinson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would ask this morning that we adjourn in memory of Greg Bunker. Greg was born and raised in Ohio. He loved Crater's ice cream, and he was wild about the Cincinnati Reds. When they made the playoffs this year, he went crazy. He had two more reasons to be happy that day. He had just aced an exam in college, and in fact, he was going back to school to finally get his degree after dropping out of Xavier many years earlier. And even better, he just got the news that his wife, Stephanie, had beaten breast cancer. To celebrate, the Bunkers took a 3-day vacation to Santa Barbara, and after riding bikes on the beach, he and his wife returned to their hotel room. Sadly, that evening, he suffered a heart attack and died while on vacation. Greg Bunker was 62, and he was the executive director of Francis House for 21 years here in Sacramento County, an agency which has helped literally tens of thousands of people find transportation, housing, jobs, and spiritual support. He fought relentlessly for those who were homeless, our neediest citizens who needed assistance when none others would provide it. Greg was a good and close personal friend, and I know more than almost anyone else, he was caring, compassionate, and committed to those who are most vulnerable in our community. Sister Libby Hernandez called Greg a ferocious leader, but a lamb for our poor and hungry. And truly here in Sacramento, Greg's spirit will live on. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Eng.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. When my wife and I moved to Monterey Park over 30 years ago, it was a city divided, much like we hear today on the national level, with rhetoric, particularly about new immigrants that had just moved into the city, battling against longtime immigrants who felt that their lives were being disrupted and intruded upon. But in the midst of all the chaos and the division, I met a remarkable woman, a woman that helped to found a coalition for harmony in that city to bring the city together, a coalition that even to this day has alumnus who are working very, very hard for social change and social justice. And therefore, I rise with deep regret, members, to ask you to join me in adjourning in memory the life of Mrs. Catherine Tellez Andrade, who passed away November 25th at the age of 85. Our hearts go out to her daughters, Adele Andrade Stadler, Viviana Andrade, sons Adrian Andrade and Robert Andrade, her grandchildren, etc. After high school, Mrs. Andrade moved to Los Angeles and became a Rosie the Riveter type of person, helping in the war effort, assembling auxiliary gas tanks at a plant during World War II. She later went to school and became a nurse, and then raised 4 children as a single parent. And what a remarkable parent she was. She leaves behind a daughter who's the president of her school board, another daughter who's the city attorney and former staff attorney of the Mexican American Legal Defense Education Fund, one of the most influential civil rights groups in the nation, and finally a son who's the general manager of the city of Los Angeles' historic monuments, the El Pueblo. And therefore, I urge my colleagues to join me in honoring this remarkable woman for an incredible life and contribution of bringing unity to our communities. Mrs. Catherine Tellez Andrade.
Mr. Garrick.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, members, I rise with sadness to memorialize the life of Peter Toberman Fletcher. Peter Fletcher was a distinguished San Diegan, great outdoorsman and neighbor, who passed away last month, December 11th, 2010, at the age of 80. A true conservationist, Pete loved fishing and hunting and preserving those traditions for future generations so they too could participate in the experiences he enjoyed. Pete was appointed by Governor Ronald Reagan as a California State Fish and Games Commissioner. He served from 1969 to 1975 and 1 year as president. Widely known as a genuine steward of the land, Pete focused on the sustainability of the state's resources during his tenure as commissioner. Along with his passion for the outdoors, Pete was a long-standing supporter and involved member of the San Diego Zoo, Ducks Unlimited, Safari Club, and served on the board of the San Diego Wild Animal Park. Born in Hollywood, California, Pete Fletcher graduated from Stanford University in the class of 1953, having majored in anthropology. After graduating, he served our country in the United States Army and later embarked on a career in both banking and real estate development. In my district, he's credited with developing the original Del Mar Plaza, the Flower Hill Mall in the 70s, and the Rancho Santa Fe Plaza in the 80s. While hard work and success took a great part in Pete's life, his passion for the outdoors and adventure crowned his interests. Over the years, it wasn't uncommon for Pete to pilot his Cessna on both fishing, hunting trips, and charity transportation events. He generously shared his knowledge and supported other sportsmen in their endeavors. Pete thoroughly enjoyed the simple pleasures of the outdoors and open fields, doing what he loved in the company of his yellow lab, Wiley. Pete was genuinely respected, admired, appreciated by all who had the opportunity to work and know him. Today, we celebrate the life and legacy of Peter Fletcher and realize that California has lost a true sportsman, conservation, and great American. Georgiana Fletcher, Peter's wife of 56 years, has lost a loving husband, and their grown children, Peter Fletcher, Christy Fletcher Bittman, Ann Fletcher, and Holly Fletcher Wicklin, have lost a wonderful father. And sadly, Peter Fletcher also leaves behind 3 grandchildren, Alexander, Maximilian, Morgan Wicklin, along with his loyal lab, Wiley. I ask that we adjourn in his memory. Thank you.
Mr. Monning.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I rise to ask that we adjourn in memory of Private First Class Conrado D. Javier, Jr., who died on December 19th in Afghanistan after his vehicle was attacked with an improvised explosive device in Kandahar province. PFC Conrado Javier was 19 years old. He was assigned to the 3rd Squadron, 2nd Stryker Cavalry Regiment in Vilseck, Germany. Private Conrado Javier, Jr. was a 2009 graduate of Seaside High School. He was active in the ROTC program, served as a member of the ROTC drill team, and frequently volunteered to attend funerals and other occasions with the drill team. PFC Javier visited his family at their home in Marina during Thanksgiving before his deployment to Afghanistan. His parents worked as farm workers and more recently have worked in the hospitality industry on the Monterey Peninsula. PFC Javier D. Conrado is survived by his parents, Julia and Conrado, and 7 brothers and sisters. PFC Conrado Javier is the 5th service member to die in the war in Afghanistan from Monterey County. May his death and service inspire the pursuit of a speedy and peaceful resolution to the conflict. Members, thank you for adjourning today in memory of PFC Conrado D. Javier.
Okay, members, please bring the names of the desk to be printed in today's journal. I am ready to entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Allen moves, Mr. Hagman seconds that this House stand adjourned until Tuesday, January 18th at 12 noon. Quorum call is lifted.